I want to start with Isaiah 60. I'm very excited to get to this message. I just believe these are one of those messages that are going to be significant for us. Isaiah 60 verse 1, arise, shine, for your light has come. And I'm always saying, has come. There's no more waiting. Okay? No more waiting. Don't you get tired of saying revival's around the corner? People have been saying revival's around the corner for 60, 70 years. Your light has come. You can have revival now. If you pursue it. So I make that very clear. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. Say, I have glory. I have glory. Say it again. I have glory. It is risen upon me. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the people. But that's not a story of despair. It's not a story of how bad this world is. Isaiah never was saying that to discourage you, because he quickly goes to the next verse. He says, but the Lord will arise upon you, and His glory will be seen upon you. Yeah. And I would say even in the darkness it will be better for glory to shine. Yeah. Amen. And nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. I want you to know something. I really believe this is a year where you're going to get surprises of God. Amen. I wrote that in somebody's card lately. I don't know who I wrote it in lately. Are you here? Whose card did I write that in? I had a word about God's going to surprise you in the year. My goodness, I have no idea who it was. But this is a year of surprises, where God is going to surprise you in ways He's going to bring blessing to you. I mean, it's going to happen so quickly, it's going to surprise you. So I just wrote that in somebody's card that just came the other day. Then Rosemary yesterday read Chuck Pierce's prophetic word, and he said this. He said, God is going to surprise you. That was his first line. And it would be a big surprise when all of a sudden people with authority and influence start looking at you going, you're a somebody. When people around you who have great influence also want to know you, and they want to get to meet you, because you're somebody that it says this is going to happen, that kings and nations shall come to the brightness of your... It's not just going to be... You're going to come into a new realm. So don't be surprised when surprises come and people start looking at you as if you've got some hope for them. It's going to happen. I speak that over you. So, for the last 4 months, we've been talking about hearing the call from Isaiah 60 to arise and shine. What I want to say this morning is that it's not Isaiah, it's the Lord. We're reading Isaiah, but it is the Lord who's saying to the church right now. He's saying, dwelling place, arise and shine and make a difference in this dark world. Arise and shine and make a difference where you live. Arise and shine, and even though there's darkness all around you, the Lord has risen upon you with His glory, so you can rise and shine. I will say this, we need the glory of God because we're going to rise and shine. And we've learned that His glory is something you actually need. Why is it? Because in the glory we have three things. We have the weight of God. I mean, He's going to back you up. You have His weight. He puts His full weight in you. You have glory. I don't know really what all that means, but it's weight of glory. Then you have the fullness. It means the fullness. When you have glory, you have the fullness of God. I mean, He fills you to overflowing. Come on, the fullness of God. And then you have the abundance of God. And I've noticed this. As we move this year from just focusing solely just on the presence, but been looking at the glory, we've been unlocking a lot of stuff of abundance, of blessing. Because in God's blessing is all His abundance. I mean, in His glory is all His abundance. So we need the glory so that we can rise and shine. Now, the big question now we're going to start with now is, how and where do we start? Okay, we're saying arise, shine. You're saying, I'm with you, but where do I start? What do I do? How do I arise? And how do I shine with the glory of God? What do I do? Well, we shared some things on Wednesday that we as a church have felt God's calling us to do. One of them is to have a House of Blessing soup kitchen, unlike what you normally see. In a soup kitchen, it is to go after poverty in Niagara Falls, not just by feeding people, but by going after the spirit of poverty and actually seeing it come down. That's a huge mandate that we don't have time to talk about tonight. Restoration outreach teams, where they're going to just go in the city and stand there in places that need restoration and call down heaven's restoration. Really cool. City work projects. We're going to adopt a street, adopt a park, whatever. Come in a street and paint houses that for free. Whatever, just to be a blessing in streets where God wants to beautify. We have partnerships where we as a church are going to come in agreement with ministries and churches outside of our own and just really help them to start to host the presence of God and be a blessing on them to host His presence. We're calling that Dwelling Place Partnerships. Our first church is I-61 in East Aurora. And they've now begun to launch themselves House of His Presence, where they now, as we're doing here, begin to call and welcome the Lord. Missions ministry, we're looking to develop a team. We have 3 mission places, Guatemala, Buenos Aires, and we want to launch into Mexico now. We want to raise up a missions team that will begin to focus on how we can go into all the world and bring the presence of God. We're not just going, we're going to do House of His Presence around the world. That's our new mandate, because the presence of God is transferable. What we're doing here every day, you can do any country of the world. And so these are countries we now want to have folks. We'll go to Guatemala, welcome the presence. Go to Buenos Aires, welcome the presence. Mexico, welcome the presence. So we're looking for a team. Then finally, Wealth Builders Ministry. We are looking to raise up people. I'll be talking a bit more about this aspect this morning, of people who are going to go after wealth to build kingdom ministries. So there's always a supply for them and the kingdom. And so these are the things that we feel God has for us. And the Bible says in Deuteronomy, He's given us power or wisdom to create wealth. So that's for the church, but I want to ask you a question. What about you? Okay, you go home today, you're going to live your life. How do you arise and shine? If you're not doing an outreach with the church, which I want you to, what about your own life? What did God call you to do to arise and shine? This is not all a church. You do not need a church outreach to arise and shine. Are you with me? You do not need a church strategized outreach to arise and shine. You're supposed to arise and shine every day and make a lifelong impact with your life. When you pass through this life and you go on with the Lord, should He not come back first, you will have made a huge difference because you've arose and you shone somewhere where God had for you. What about you personally? If you do nothing with all we've talked about, what are you going to do with the glory of God? Leave it for services? And so that's where we are this morning. So I was spending time with the Lord this past Thursday morning. I'm in my office at home, just sitting there, just praying a bit. And I thought, well, okay, I'll go to where I've been reading Proverbs, and it's been good. And so I went to Proverbs. I was about to start reading, and I heard the Lord interrupt me. That clearly. Every now and then you hear words so clearly. This was one of those clear words. And I simply heard this: uncap the wells.
Oh, amen. Amen.
And I knew He was talking about bring this to the service today. I'm about to sit down and to read Proverbs for myself. And I hear uncap the wells. And I knew what that meant for us. So I went to Genesis chapter 26. And I'm going to ask you to go there. I heard it very clearly. Genesis chapter 26, uncap the wells. So let's go there. I want to read those who need to know, it's the first book of the Bible. Genesis chapter 26. We no longer have the scriptures on the screen. We felt it'd be good for you to bring a Bible instead, and or an iPhone with the Bible on it, or an iPad with the Bible on it. I like those myself. Let's stand and read God's word. Genesis 26, verse 1. Now there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Gerar to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And the Lord appeared to him and said, Do not go down to Egypt. Say it with me. Do not go down to Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and will give to your offspring all these lands, and in your offspring all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commands, my statutes, and my laws. Let me say this before I forget it, because I'm not. What would that look like for you to be somebody like Abraham who could unleash God's promises for generations to come? Wow. I read this over and over again this morning a couple times. That thought came. I mean, God said, I'm going to bless you, Isaac, not because of you, but because of your dad. Isn't that cool? Dads, your grandchildren are going to get a blessing because of what you do today. Grandmothers, grandmothers, your descendants are going to come into blessing or whatever because of what you do now. I just took notice of it. He didn't say, Isaac, you're so wonderful, I'm going to bless you because of you. And even though he will bless him because of him, he said, I'm blessing you because of your dad. You need to understand, when you're tempted to go off the mark, you might be changing destiny for an entire family. That's scary. That's scary. You might get off track, and you go, well, that's just me. No. Isaac was here walking in blessing because of his father. Let's go on. I just had to say that. So Isaac settled in Gerar, and when the men of the place asked him about his wife, he said, she's my sister, for he feared to say my wife, thinking lest the men of the place should kill me because of Rebekah, because she was attractive in appearance. When he had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out of the window, saw Isaac laughing. A lot of translations say caressing his wife Rebekah, and he goes, that's not his sister. That's not good behavior for a sister. And so Abimelech called Isaac and said, behold, she's your wife. How then could you say she's my sister? Isaac said to him, because I thought lest I die because of her. And Abimelech said, what is this you've done to us? One of the people might easily have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. Those were different days. And so Abimelech warned all the people, saying, whoever touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. Did you hear what I just read? Isaac sowed in that land. What kind of land was it? Famine. And reaped in the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him, and the man became rich and gained more and more until he became, say it, very wealthy. He had possessions of flocks and herds and many servants, so that the Philistines envied him. Now, the Philistines had stopped and filled with earth all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father. And Abimelech said to Isaac, go away from us, for you're much mightier than we. So Isaac departed from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar, not that far away, and he settled there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water. In other words, he uncapped the wells of water that had been dug in the days of Abraham his father, which the Philistines had stopped after the death of Abraham. In other words, they had plugged up the wells. He uncapped them. And he gave them the names that his father had given them. But when Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of spring water, the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's servants, saying, the water's ours. So he called the name of the well Esk, because they contended with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that also. So he called his name Sitnah. And he moved from there and dug another well. This guy's pretty gracious. And they did not quarrel over that. So he called his name Rehoboth. saying, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." From there he went up to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, "I am the God of Abraham your father." Again, father. "Fear not, for I am with you, and will bless you, and multiply your offspring for my servant Abraham's sake." Wouldn't you love that? God's saying, I am going to bless you, John, because of your father. I'm blessing you today. Don't get me wrong. I'm blessing you because of your father. I just can't get that on my heart today. People, listen to this. Listen to this. What potential you have to change destiny down the road. So he built an altar there, and he called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. When Abimelech went to him from Gerar with Ahuzah, his advisor, and Philcol, the commander of his army, Isaac said to them, "Why have you come to me, seeing that you hate me and have sent me away from you?" Watch this, read this. They said, "We see plainly that the Lord has been with you." So we said, "Let there be a sworn pact between us, between you and us, and let's make a covenant with you that you will do us no harm, just as we have not touched you and have done to you nothing but good, and have sent you away in peace." Now watch this. He said, "You are now the blessed of the Lord." I think some of you are sleeping. You are now the blessed of the Lord. So he made them a feast, and they ate and drank, and in the morning they rose early and exchanged oaths. And Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed from him in peace. Now watch this. That same day, Isaac's servants came and told him about the well that they had dug, and said to him, "We have found water." And he called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. Anyways, you can be seated. Here this passage is about Isaac moving into the promise that God had given to his father Abraham. Okay? He's moving into a promise that he has, but it was given to his father Abraham. God had told Abraham that he would bless him and make him great, and that in him all nations would be blessed. All the nations of the earth would be blessed in him. So here we have Isaac, of course, who was the first of the fulfillment of the promise to Abraham, because you remember Abraham could not have children till way late on, and so here we have Isaac, who is the fulfillment of this promise that God gave to Abraham. So here we have Isaac. He knows of this promise, obviously. God came to him and said, "I'm going to bless you and make your name great because of your dad. I'm going to do this on you." So Isaac is very much aware that he's walking in a promise. Can I say, are you aware that you are walking in a promise, or does your life just get by? Are you just doing stuff to get by, to pay the bills, or are you living out a promise? That's why a lot of people have nothing to do with life, because they're just going day by day. They're not living out a promise. Listen, if all you're doing is paying the bills and working, even if you're giving to church, that's great, but what about living out of your promise? You don't even care so much about some things that come along. It's because you're not living for the weekend just to get away. You're living out, and here he is living out of a promise that comes to him. God made it very much clear to him. So Isaac is on a journey towards a promise. Now, I want to talk about this today. All of us are on a journey into the promises of God. Everybody here, I hope you are. I mean, we're trying to help you go on this journey. Whether you go with us or not is up to you. But people are holding up for something specific. Some you felt God has spoken. You said, "Here's what I got for you," and you're holding out for that. Some of you are holding out for other things. You're waiting on some promise or a word that's been spoken to you. You might have been reading your word and God highlighted something and said, "That is for you." You're holding on to it today. You might have had a prophetic word and you're calling it in, but you're waiting on a promise. You're holding on for a promise. Others, you're going, "Well, I don't know. I've never really had a promise, but I do have a sense that God has something for me right now. You know, I've never really had a prophetic word word that I'm holding out for. I've never really waited for a promise, but I do have a sense that there's something really neat coming. God's got something for me. I know this is a season for me. I'm not waiting for something, but either way, what I want to point out is that you're waiting for a promise. You're moving towards it. You're journeying. That's what Isaac was doing. Now watch this. While he is journeying towards the promise, like you and I, there was a problem. There was a famine in the land. Okay, there was a problem. There was famine in the land, and in order for Isaac to actually live and survive and go on to get this promise that he's been journeying towards, he's thinking, I'm going to have to do something with this because this is not good. Can't water the crops, can't give water for the animals. I better go where there's not a famine. How many know that makes sense in your mind? I better go somewhere and get water. And so he's thinking, and I'm sure that I'm going to go somewhere else. I can then grow crops and I can live. And so it appears Isaac was headed to Egypt to get out of the famine. It appears that what he's doing is he's planning to go to Egypt because I guess he knows there's not a famine there and that he's going to be able to kind of at least grow, keep his family alive and get the farm going, whatever. Obviously, Egypt's not where he was supposed to be. Abraham was not on a journey to Egypt. It was not the land God had promised them. The land was right where they were. And so the Lord appears to Isaac and says, stay on course. Don't go down to Egypt. Don't do that. And he's probably going, but it's dry here. It's a little hard here. It's dry ground here. It's like, but I'm sure down in Egypt, I can actually get water. There's rivers, and I can, And he says, don't go to Egypt. I'm going to bless you right here. Don't go down to Egypt. I'm going to bless you right here in the middle of a famine. And I examined this, and I'm going to look at this, and this was a passage that and here's what I saw. It looks like Isaac was about to take the easy road. You go, well, really moving all the way to Egypt? That's the easy road. Well, in his mind, that's the safe road. Come on, maybe it's not even the easiest, but it's a safe road. Years ago, I had an option of going to 2 places to minister as a youth pastor many, many, many years ago. I was in a church, and the pastor moved, and then some months later, I got a call to go to a church in another city. And I didn't know about the city, about the church, or whatever. So I called the previous pastor I'd been with who had moved away. And I said, tell me about this church, because they're calling me to be a youth pastor. And he goes, well, if you're thinking about moving, why don't you come to my church where I've just now moved? And I went, okay. I have 2 churches that are 2 large churches that are asking me to come be a youth pastor. I'm like, okay, God, which one's you? And to this day, I believe I took the safe road, not the right road. To this day, I believe I took the safe road, but not the right road. So here's Isaac journeying towards the promise his father was given by God, which he's now inheriting. And he's got a choice, and I'm thinking he's going to take the easy road. He may not have been thinking, I'm taking the easy road, but practically, I need water. Practically, I need crops, and I can't do that with this ground. Humanly speaking, if you're in a famine, you don't plant a crop. You're going to waste your seed. Humanly speaking, you go where there's not a famine, right? That's probably what he's thinking. The only problem here, and I want everybody to listen to me, is that it would lead away from the promise. It would take him out of the direction of the promise. Watch this. Going to Egypt may have solved a temporary problem, but it would have actually been a devastating solution. I want to show you kind of what happens when you do that. I believe that when I took that church and I became youth pastor, God was with me. I believe He had me in the church for me, but I was scared, a young pastor. I went where it was safe. It took a lot of years, I believe, to get back on course. It wasn't until I got to Niagara Falls I got back on course. And I went through numbers of churches in the process. Because my first decision was said, go where it's safe. Go where it's practical. You know this pastor, you don't know that one. You know this kind of ministry, you don't know that one. I had some baggage in my own life at that time, made safe feel better. And so here's the problem, is that there's Egypt. Probably not going to have famine. Probably going to be able to grow crops, get food, get water. But it would have led away from the promise. And often when you do that, it leads to devastating solutions. It might have been a temporary. We have water. But trust me, down the road, it doesn't lead to the promise. You may say, well, I've done nothing bad. I haven't done anything bad. I've just gone where there's water. The problem is it's not the promise. Are you with me? Are you following me? Or am I? Is that it's not the promise. God said, I'm going to bless you here. Don't go down there. I'm going to bless you right here. Now, where are we going with this thought right now? This morning, I believe God's given us a mandate as a church, as pastors, to equip the church to get poised, get ready to arise and shine. Go after God. He's saying, I'm giving you glory. You have glory. Now go out and make a difference. We are working towards it. We're helping you move towards it. For you to have a place in your life that God wants to call you. And we're getting poised to do this, to arise and to shine. But I'm going to tell you something, there's going to be a lot of distractions that are going to come to you to pull you off the course. There will be a lot of distractions that will come to you to get you off your place that you are supposed to be. I guarantee it. And if you're not on your guard, you'll also find out you're in Egypt, and that's not where God wanted you. All of a sudden you'll find that you're in another land where you were never supposed to be. And you're saying, why is my life not being fruitful? Because you were never supposed to be there in the first place. Did you go to a bad place? No. Did you take part of the sinful practice of Egypt? No. You may not have done it. You still serve God. Yes. But you're not where you're supposed to be. So therefore you will not thrive the way you were meant to be if you would have stayed in the famine. And there will be a lot of things, a lot of distractions that will try to pull you off your course. And there will be a lot of things the enemy may even do to get you to move in a direction that's not of God. I've got to talk to you about this today. This is a devastation in the church. I want you to lean on the edge of your seat, and I want you to sit down and say, Spirit of God, speak to me. I have seen this so often. People being called of God. And it might even be in the middle of a famine. But the enemy knows that he can distract you if he tantalizes you with something you've been waiting for. But it's over here. It's over here. It's not in the famine. It's over here. Oh, that's a bigger church. It's over here. Oh, that's a greater ministry. They're doing some great stuff. That's over here. And I'm not just talking about any church. Any place. And what happens is the enemy will throw something at you to distract you from the very place you're supposed to be. So you will go down to Egypt, and he doesn't really care that he takes you to a bad place as long as it's not God's place. I to this day believe that I went to the wrong church. Was God with me? Of course He will. As we sang, He will never forsake you. He will always help you. We had a great time, but I also believe I came into trouble in my own life that I never would have come in physically. I mean, I was under so much stress in that place. I created a hiatus hernia, things. I don't think I would have at the other place. The pastor at the other place was much more gentle, much more just. I came under physical attack that I don't think I ever would have come under had I. Was this a good church? Yeah. It was just not where I was supposed to be. Did God stay with me and help me? Yes, because He's a good Father. He didn't punish me, but I'm off track nonetheless. Can I say, if you won't stay the course, and you go, well, there's water there, and there's a lot more water than here, and God's going to stay here, and you get drawn away. Y'all with me? This happens all the time. It's devastating. I see it happen all the time. In the Christian circles, we in the Niagara Peninsula here have so much abundance of opportunities. We can just like, you can get ministry anywhere. I mean, I've been in small towns where you're it, baby. I mean, you're it. You're the center of all church life. Here, there's churches like you can go shopping. If you don't like Canada's version, you can go across the river. And what I see happen is that God says, I got a promise for you. I'm going to bring it. And you might even feel like I'm in a famine, so your temptation to run to one of the many options that are good, but they're not God for you. And it happens all the time. I've seen people get on the verge of what God's going to do. They're like, and they might say, but I'm in a famine, I got to run. No, then sow seed right there. Amen. But they don't. They go to Egypt. They go to Egypt. And let me tell you something. The enemy will tempt you to do that. He'll tempt you to let go of your promise. And he'll say stuff like this, yeah, but it's not probably going to work out that well. They'll hire you over there. But I've been waiting on God here. Oh, they'll hire you over there. And God's going, don't go to Egypt. Trust me. Yeah, but it's too hard. It's too hard. The ground's hard here. Trust me. And you run off to some other place and you let go of the promise God has for you, and you abandon the dream that God was trying to work out in your life right over here, but it just looks better over there. What I see happen when you do that is you never get the dream you thought you were going to get. You may not die. And God loved you so much. He's a good Father. He doesn't abandon you. But He meant for you to thrive here. And there will probably come some sorrow. Because God's blessings come without sorrows. But far too often, we're supposed to arise and shine with the glory of God. But let me say this, if you're going to do that, then you've got to stay the course through thick or thin. And you will arise, and you will shine for the glory of God. You will, and you will come into your place of blessing. If you will hang in there, stay the course. Do not run to where it appears to be easy. Because far often we jump ship for something easier, something more convenient. It just leads you out of the promise of God. Have you heard in your spirit today? Have you heard? I'll keep going until you've heard. Stay the course. If you want to get at your promise, stay the course. Good news is this. Isaac did not go down to Egypt. Rather, he settled in Gerar. And this is going to get more exciting, so hang on. Happened to be the land of the Philistines, though. Keep that in mind. He stayed there in Gerar. Land of the Philistines, where King Abimelech is. Well, you read that. He lands up protecting Abraham and his wife. That's kind of cool. Isaac and his wife. That's kind of cool. But here's the amazing thing. Here's what I want you to see. We don't want to look at that passage, but here it is. Instead of going to Egypt and trying to save his life, Isaac sowed his crops into the land in a season of famine. And as a result, not only did he not lose his crops, not only did he not get what he feared might happen, not only did his family not fall apart, but he actually, when he sowed into the land in famine, he actually had a harvest of 100-fold. He actually had a harvest of 100-fold. And the Lord blessed him, and he became very, very wealthy. Now watch this. The blessings became so great that the Philistines began to envy him. Can you imagine that? The church becoming so blessed of God, so prosperous and moving in good things for God, that people around you start going, you're doing way better than us. Wow, we didn't like your God, but you're doing better than us. pastors do better. Even your kids are doing better than my kids. How many know that's the way it was always meant to be? And so the Philistines are starting to get envious of Isaac. You're going to watch this. This is absolutely crazy. He became so blessed that not only did the Philistines envy him, the King Abimelech actually asked him to move away because he says this. He says, you're mightier than we are. Hello, this is the king. Saying to a normal guy, you've become mightier than me, the king. I would like you to move away. Your light's shining too bright for me. You're getting the limelight here. That's what he said. He said, I would like you to move away. I protected you. I'm not going to hurt you, but I want you to move away because it's not working out good for me because you become mightier than me, the king. Stay with me. Imagine that, mightier than the king. So I want to stop and ask, what do we see? Here's what we see. If God is in something, you can have a harvest even in the middle of a famine.
That's right.
The dollar could get bad, but the church can thrive. The dollar can get bad, but the church can thrive. You can have recession, and the church can thrive. The people of God can thrive. God is a God, if you will stay the course, not take the easy road or the convenient route. God's a God who can bring a harvest to you when no one else around you is actually even having a harvest.
Yes.
If you stay the road and stay the course, God can bring a harvest to you when people around you are not having a harvest. You're the only one having a harvest. I don't know, I keep running into people that are having a harvest, but they just seem to go to that church over there. In Bethel, there are people, honest to goodness, on planes meeting people from Reading and saying this or saying, oh, you're from that church. Oh my goodness, that church we hear, the city's changed because of that church. These are just like, people are talking because of one church that's being blessed in such a way. See, here's the deal. There's an abundance in the glory of God to bring you into your harvest if you will not jump ship and run to Egypt. You can have a famine, have a harvest even in a famine. If you stay where God has you. So Isaac says, you want me to move? All right. Packs up his stuff. Moves into the valley of Gerar, which is really not that far away, just as he was asked to do. Now, I love what happened. Because when you're following God and you do not jump ship and you're going after His glory, what God is doing is transferable, and He can do it in you no matter what the enemy does to try to get you out of it. You can live there, you can live here. You can go there, you can go. It really doesn't matter. When you stay on course with God's plan, it doesn't matter what the enemy does. He cannot take you off it, and the enemy cannot rob you of where God wants you to live. He can't. He cannot. I used to wonder, can people take me out of the will of God? You know, say I didn't get that promotion and I was supposed to get it. Did they, that's what was happening. I was thinking some things happened in that church. I'm going, God, did someone rob me of your destiny? I was actually asking those questions. It was not that. I was in the wrong place. But when you stay in the desert where you're supposed to be, if that's where God has you at that moment, the enemy can't get you out of it. So King Abimelech said, leave. And Abraham goes, all right. So he moves. And God blesses him just abundantly even more. Now watch this. Here for us is what I believe is part of our journey, a very, very important part of our journey. The presence of God is the start of our journey. Yes. I really believe that with all my heart. So whenever Isaac left, he left in the presence. The presence of God is the fullness of joy. The psalmist said, you've made known to me the path to life in your presence. So follow me very quickly. I've done this so much, but I need to say this. If you will stay on course and make the presence of God your number one pursuit, then here's what happens. Okay, you got to understand this. This is part of the journey of where God's leading you. Fire always falls on sacrifice. And often people say, why is God's fire fall on them? Because they offered a sacrifice. They gave him something to fall on. They didn't say TV is more important. They said, my life is the pursuit of the presence of God. I will go after him. God goes, good, because my blessing, my fire will fall where I see a sacrifice. Now watch this. Here's what you need to understand. When his fire falls on your sacrifice, it doesn't consume it and that's done. It's different. It will consume it because he will use it completely. But when his fire falls on your sacrifice, it doesn't consume it and leave ashes. What it does the reverse. It actually brings out glory. Amen. When the fire hits your sacrifice, glory. That's why you always see fire with glory. Because fire ignites the glory. And in the glory is where you will find your destiny. And if you go, well, I had a great time with the presence of God 2 years ago, and you've dropped your journey, you're probably in Egypt right now. You're probably in Egypt right now. Pastor Bill, that's a very mean thing to say to me. You're supposed to be complaining. He's a good God. Trust me, I went to Egypt for a while myself. But honestly, the presence of God is how you will find your destiny. So, let's go on. So Isaac's now living in the valley of Gerar. And something supernatural begins to happen. It's amazing. And it has to be supernatural. Because watch, you got to get this. You've got to get this. Isaac is driven away or asked to leave because of King Abimelech, because of jealousy, because of greed, because of envy, because of a lot of bad things. He's forced to leave, but he's driven right into the plan of destiny. It's bizarre. He's driven away from the king where he was living, but he's driven right into the destiny of God. He lands up in the valley where his father had already dug wells years before. He lands up in the place where their wells are, where his father had previously dug wells. And everyone knows if you're going to grow a crop, you need water. Watch this. If he had stayed with the king, he would never uncapped a well. And he would have had a mediocre life. But he was driven away from King Abimelech because of jealousy, because of greed, but he was driven right into the destiny of God. Church, who else could do that but God? Had he not been driven away from the king, he would have landed living and relying on less. So sometimes the place where you're in, they may not be real pleasant at the moments. It may not be pleasant. You might have someone doing something. You might have a King Abimelech saying, get away from me, you're too, you might have some things you have to go through, but if you will hold the course, also you go, I was always supposed to be here. What does that remind you of? It reminds me of a father that was going to come down the road, Joseph. He said, well, God, what the enemy meant for harm, God meant for good. So King Abimelech says, get away from us. He goes away, and he lands up in the very place he needed to be. Stay with me. This thing gets more and more supernatural. First of all, he uncaps these wells. And I asked the question, how would he even know where the wells were? Because they covered them over, I'm sure. And I'm sure they didn't put a sign there. Here was Abraham's wells. They covered them over. They filled them in. This is not going to be... And usually what they would do, I heard that they would throw rocks and boulders down so it wasn't an easy empty. They would not just throw a little dirt in, they would fill it with rocks, and they would just make sure this well's not going to be used, and they would cover it over so no one's going to find it. So here he is. How would he even know where the well was? He didn't have GPS or some kind of a DNA tracking. Abraham dug here, his hands were in the soil, and we know it was there. How did he know? Somehow the Spirit of God supernaturally said, there's a dig there without a witching stick. Somehow he would have known, dig there, dig there, dig there. And so he redigs the wells, uncaps the old wells of his father Abraham, renames them what Abraham did. He takes and restores. That's the season we're in, guys. God wants to restore right now. He's restoring you so you can go on into your purpose. I just thought that's so cool. There were some things that were robbed from Abraham's destiny. God said, I'm going to restore them. And there were some things robbed in your destiny as well. God wants to restore them. Can I release that on you? God wants to restore places where the enemy is robbed from you. He's thought, I'm going to shut down the destiny of your father, and you're not going to go on. God's going, no, 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 I'm uncap those wells. I'm going to uncap those wells. I'm going to uncap those wells. Anyways, he does this. This brings quarreling amongst the herdsmen, the people living there, because they wanted the wells. I said to Rosemary, this is ridiculous. Why did they dig them up if they wanted them so badly? Seriously, why did they go? He digs them up. Now you don't even have a right to quarrel. I dug this thing. You didn't even know where it was. If you did, why did you dig it up? They didn't. So he digs up the well. They argue. So him and his graciousness, he goes, all right, you just go ahead. Have that well. Finds another one of his father's wells, digs it up. They come, oh, we want the water. All right, have that one too. Goes to the third time. Finally, they all go, I guess there's no water. And they let him have the third one. So they're, this ends the quarreling. They leave him alone. And I just sat there going, how come the people could not find these wells? I mean, if they were so desperate, why weren't they looking? Why couldn't they? Why? He moves in there and all of a sudden he finds the wells. I mean, if it's famine, wouldn't desperation make you find a well? But they didn't. So he comes there, pushed away from the king, into the destiny of God, where God reveals to him where the wells were. He digs them up, boulders the whole deal. And I'm not saying, why didn't they do that? Why did the herdsmen do that? Why did they have to wait for him and then try to steal from him? And here's what I got, and you hang with me. Here's what I see happening in this day. God wants to bless you and cause you to shine in such a way that those around you, no matter what they do, are unable to do what you can do.
Amen. Amen.
I believe that. They could not. They did not have what Isaac had. God wants you to arise and shine so you can do what those around you cannot do. Reinhardt, you're on the job, and there's a job that's just got everybody completely just flustered. No one can figure it out. No one can do it. But you're sitting there saying, Father, you actually created electricity. We just kind of found it. What would you do? And you walk up to the hydro pool, and the Father just says, connect here, connect there, connect there, and you go away looking like a rock star. When I was building the basement where we live in, we moved into a house and the basement was completely bare, nothing in it. I'd never finished a basement in my life. My father was a carpenter. I built a fort as a child. I do have a bit of carpentry in me, but I'd never done a basement. This was just concrete walls, nothing, ceiling, floor. So I'm building it, and it's turned out okay, but there was many times where I did not know what to do. And I stood back and said, Jesus, you were a carpenter. What would you do? I'm not kidding you. I did not know what to do. There was corners, there was angles, there was things I did not know, and I was doing it myself. And I said, you were a carpenter, Lord, and I finished the basement, and I believe that just like Isaac, you're going to be able to find wells that people need that no one else could find. And God's going to arise within you, and the glory of God's going to shine on you, and you're going to become an answer in a city that the city needed. You're going to become an answer in your job where no one can do it. Why? It's because the glory of God is on you, and you've risen, and you've shone, and no one else there can do it, but you can. And you're not going to get proud. You're not going to get arrogant. You're going to say, it's my Father. He's a good Father. He knows what to do. He told me. Honest.
Yes, Lord.
He wants to use you to find solutions in places where solutions could not be found, to find answers where there are no answers. So let's go on. I will try to be quick. So blessings with Isaac become so obvious now. I mean, his herds are getting bigger. I mean, he's got more servants, he's got more goats, more sheep. It's huge. Now watch this, okay? King Abimelech, even though he's not living right near, still hears about all this. Doesn't that remind you of Obed-Edom? King Abimelech goes, okay, I'm getting scared. Not only is he now next door, mightier than me, he's now in the valley, and he's so big I'm getting fearful now. That's what it says. So what does he do? He sends a couple of his advisors and commanders to go see Isaac and say, we better call a truce here, a treaty. Let's make a vow of covenant. Because we're a little afraid. Now remember when your wife was there and we protected, we didn't hurt you. Remember that? We never hurt you. We did send you away, yes, granted, but we did it in peace, so we didn't hurt you. Now let's have a covenant that we will be in peace with each other, because he's getting afraid now that Isaac is getting so great that something could go wrong and Isaac could come and do harm to them. So he makes this covenant with Isaac. Isaac does okay, so they do this. And when he comes to him, Isaac says, you sent me away. Why did you come? I did what you asked. I left. I came down here. These herdsmen, they stole my wealth. I came. Why did you come? You were mean to me. You pushed me away. Why did you come? Isaac. It's very plain, the Lord. It's very plain to us, the Lord's with you. That was his answer. It's very plain, the Lord's with you. We feel we better make covenant with you because the Lord is with you. And they go on talking a little bit, and then he says to Isaac, here's the deal, Isaac. You are now the blessed of the Lord. How many think it's better to stay in a famine and be with God than to run and hightail to something that looks promising right now?
Yes.
Is this not the plan of God? Is that not how God works? We say he's a good father. We sang about it, and some of you are going, well, those are the words I better sing them or I look stupid. But do you know what it means? It means he's a good father who wants to do what he did with Isaac, and he wants to do it with you. Honestly. He wants to do with you. If you will just say, okay, God, I'm on a journey with you. We're going into the presence because the presence takes us to the glory. And the glory puts us in the promised land. It reveals the agenda of heaven. We're going to stay the course. We're going to run the course. And God said, okay, I can help you. Because what's going to happen is you're now going to get blessed. And is that not God? Is this not his character being revealed right here? God blesses his people to the point that those around them say, you're now the blessed of the Lord. Now, there's one last thought before we close. Here's what we need revelation of. I saw this. The next day, after they had this big party, this covenant meal, signed the treaty, signed the covenant, whatever they did in blood, I don't know what they did. A couple goats and sheep, I don't know. Whatever they did, his servants run up and say, Isaac, we dug a new well. We dug a new well. We found more water. Are you guys hearing this?
Yeah.
Are you starting to catch us? We dug a new well. We found more water. This is so cool. God leads you. You sow in famine. And in the famine, you uncap wells of your Father. Not so you can rest there, because you're enjoying what your father did. And you're coming into the destiny of God. But then God says, okay, you've now received from the wells of your father. I want you to dig more wells for yourself. So you have now for the kids who come after you. So in other words, your father's ceiling now becomes your floor. And you start digging your own wells. You don't just stay uncapping wells all your life. That's, I think, where a lot of things have happened. In the church, people uncap wells, they uncap wells. And now God says, dig some new ones. Dig some new ones. Dig some new ones. Dig some new wells. You've uncapped those, dig some new wells. You've uncapped your father. You've got everything. You sucked your father dry. You got everything from him. Awesome. Now dig some new wells of your own. And those are the wells that your kids are going to start to drink out of. Your kids are going to start. And then your kids are going to start to dig new wells and dig new wells and dig new wells. And then their kids, they're going to dig new wells and just... Guys, come on. So what does it mean for us to uncap wells? I'm going to wrap this up very quickly. But here's how you can arise and shine. Here's what I see. By uncapping the old wells, the wells of Abraham, it led them into a greater increase, which began to expand to new wells and even more abundance. Now watch this. Their inheritance was found in the uncapped wells of Abraham. That means where you're supposed to rise and shine might just be found by uncapping some wells. Because some of you are sitting there going, I don't know what to arise and shine in. And that's when the Lord said to me, uncap wells. Watch this. There's some destinies in your family that God wants you to pick up. But the enemy's capped it. He's capped it. So your children will never come into that because it's been capped. If you want to find where you're supposed to excel and we're supposed to rise and shine, we need to uncap some wells. Yes. Follow me. Yes. We're not meant simply to rest on past wells. We actually have to dig new ones. Uncapping wells will lead you to your own wells. Are you with me? Uncapping wells will lead you to your own wells. I've heard this been said by Bill Johnson and the guys in Bethel. They say, if you don't feel you have an anointing, hang around with those who do. Walk in their anointing until finally it becomes your own. Well, here I see this. Uncap the wells of your father and drink from those wells. Drink from those wells until you start digging your own well. And that well's now by your own digging, by your own hand. And then you begin to produce inheritances for those who come after you. Now, when do we do this? And I'll tell you what often happens is this. In church, we see everything with such spiritual terms that we leave out here and we have good feelings, but we do nothing. We feel good about ourselves. That's good. We feel wonderful. But how many know by the time you get a next headache or something, those feelings are gone and you've done nothing and then you just don't pick it up again. So you need another Sunday and you've just done nothing. So practically, what do? I'll say this, your inheritance is found by uncapping the wells of your past and then watching God use you to dig your own wells for the generations to come. So here we go. What you need to do is identify what are the wells that you have to uncap. You can write this down, it's important. See, I found it interesting, it says that when he undug those wells, he renamed them. He actually had a name for the well, that his father named it. In other words, there was a name to it. There was an actual substance which meant something. You know, they didn't just name Bob Well. They didn't just pick a name out and say, well, that looks like a Bob. It had meaning to it. So what I'm saying is the well you're going to come actually has meaning for you. There's a reason that was in your family. There's a reason that a great uncle, 16, no, it's not many centuries, but a long time ago was doing it. There was a name, there's a reason, there was something to uncap. Identify what that is. I'll tell you why. Those wells will be where you find favor and blessing. Okay, understand? Those wells, I believe, where you'll start to walk in favor and blessing because they were already part of your inheritance. See, remember, Isaac was journeying into the inheritance that his father started, right? So are you guys catching this? Like you're not trying to recreate the wheel. You're going back to where the inheritance actually flows through your family, and you're coming into it, you're coming into that destiny, so you're already journeying into it, so you're uncapping what it was, coming back into it. Now you're going to start to get to the place where you dig your own wells for yourself. And you won't be spinning wheels. And I believe that when you start to move into those things, that's where you're going to start to see blessing and favor. That's why sometimes people go, I tried this, I tried that, I've tried everything else, I failed everything. Well, maybe it's not in your inheritance, and you're trying things outside of the wells. You never uncap wells, you're digging your own, and those wells are not really hitting good, clean water. I'm sorry I'm taking a little longer, but you got to get this. So obviously these are spiritual wells, first of all, for us as a church. Right now we're uncapping things like the Father's love. That's a well we need to drink from deeply. His mercy, we got to drink. His grace, we got to drink from that well deeply. His love, all these things are prophetic gifts. Those are all wells we got to drink from deeply, deeply. Okay, you understand? We're uncapping wells that are... But I've got to talk to you now about things that you can practically rise and shine in. So I'm going to ask you some questions. When you identify wells of your family, what would they look like? I'm going to start with this. Here's the list. It's going to be quick. Are there any ministry wells in your family? I don't mean lane wells. Ministry wells. Have there been missionaries in your family? Evangelists in your family? Are there Sunday school teachers? Are there gifted people? Are there prophetic people in your family? Like, honestly, ask God, are there ministry wells in my family? I had a missionary to Alaska in my family. I don't know, Okay, business wells. Have there been business entrepreneurs in your family? Was a grandfather, did he own business? Were there business people in your family? Were there people who were in businesses? Did they run businesses? Did they have businesses? Political. Did you have anybody in your family who was a judge, a lawyer? Was there anybody who was in the law? The policeman. Was there, social justice wells? Was there anybody in your family who was in social? Did someone dig a well in social justice? Were there those who fought for the rights of the unborn or whatever? How about sports and athletic wells? Did you have people who were able to achieve and excel in athletics and sports in your family? Somebody who was in the Olympics, somebody who was just... I'm just asking you to try to identify where wells might be in your family. How about artistic, creative wells? Did you have those who had art, artistic, they painted, they had the flair to paint pictures, they were artists, they were or drama, or pottery? Did you have all these wells in your family? I tried pottery one day. I wouldn't suggest it's a well. It was my skydiving man I made in school, though, but I made a lopsided, but I did try it, so there might be something. Seriously, there might be. Musical wells. Innovation wells, inventions. Were there any inventors in your family? And somebody invented something, like the light bulb or something. If you go back. Was there any teaching or education in your family? Medical wells, doctors, nurses. Scientists. Media. I'm just trying to get you to think, what are the wells you uncap? I just found it very interesting that when he undug the wells, he was able to say, this well means that. This well means that. And this well means that. And this well means... My point is this, if you're going to rise and shine, remember, you're on a journey, it's your promise. It just may be that your father was already in the journey. And maybe that great uncle 3 generations ago was on his way to the destiny, but the enemy capped the well. Yes. The enemy capped the well 2 generations ago. How about uncapping wells that are already meant to be uncapped? Start to drink from them. Once you've identified them, and God's kind of helped you to identify it, because then eventually God's going to have you dig your own wells. Stand.